Hey guys, how's it going? Danny Fitzy here, and today I'm going to be going over my Penance Brand Inquisitor build. I say a Penance Brand Inquisitor build. I'm not doing anything particularly special or unique here, but like all my guides, you can take what I'm using, make it better for yourself, make it a God Gamer build. Totally up to you. I'm just going to show you what I've been using, what I plan on changing and maybe doing, and some other alternatives that you can do, and all that good stuff. In the background, you're just going to watch a bit of a T16 map with a Delirium on it. This was a Zana map, so it's a Delirium mirror, so obviously the Delirium ramps up. And then I'm also just going to skip in a minute to show you what kind of single target potential you can start getting rolling on this build, because let's just say there's been a few one-shots that's been happening recently now that I've got my setup sorted out. I'm also a lot more tankier. If anyone's here who watched the video I uploaded a few days ago that I've deleted now, I did a quick overview of this build a few days ago, and after making that video I did some minor, well, I say minor upgrades. I made some upgrades, probably like 2 or 3x worth of upgrades, like getting a replica soul tether, and the build just jumped like a whole new level. It used to be so squishy before. I was getting one shot by like everything, and then getting the soul tether just made me that much more tankier. I've been able now to clear all T16s. Not had any problems with any bosses or anything. There are a few mechanics, obviously, in this game that are just gonna smash you in certain situations. So that's just a given. But for a softcore build, the clears are good. Single target can be devastating if you put some more effort into that, which I'll talk about. Penance Brand has a bit of a unique kind of setup that you need to kind of hit requirements and stuff to really get that thing to hit hard. And I've done Katarina, I've done A5 first time on it. I think I died once or twice on A5, I died once on Katarina, and these were all just more mistakes than anything. Done a bunch of Elder Guardians, did a couple of Elder Guardians with Maven on them, and still did them. Did a Phoenix as a Shaper Guardian. Haven't done Shaper or anything like that yet, and I've done a bunch of T16s with Mavens on it and stuff, and I've done a bunch of Maven invitations. Haven't done any of the exalt your pog. Haven't done any T like the 10 ways yet, but I'm getting to that. So now that I can actually farm the bosses easier because I've changed stuff up, then it feels better. Here's a good example of some nice nutty damage. It's not the most insane damage, this one. Did about half a healthlet, and then now she's perma frozen. And then the rest of them, I don't think critted. I think that's the reason why. Didn't even Assassin's Marker, so that's a terrible example. But in the ritual, when she spawns back in the ritual, she gets basically 2-shot. But there she is. She gets 1 shot there, and then another shot there. Does insane damage. So the potential is pretty nutty. And just to really reiterate that point, we'll go to 3940. Oh, whoa, we'll go back just a split second so you can see that I actually go in. So this is a vault map. I think it's a T15, not a T16. Go in there, kill these boys, jump in, Penance Brand locks on, bang, he's gone. He's dead. But he does get his revenge in the ritual fight, because he turns into an absolute giant beast. It takes a little bit longer to kill there. I think the ritual, when it makes him big, gives him more life and stuff. And it is still a crit build, so you are requiring on some big crits, some crits to do big damage because of all that multi, and to ignore Ellie resist. But this video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to explain as much as I know about the brand and the Penance Brand mechanic, so you can do whatever you with that. I would definitely say that go look up some stuff about that, because it is not as obvious, and it's quite the mechanic to get used to, especially for me. They're very unique. Just the brands alone, and then Penance Brand on top of that, it's very unique and different. And then I'm just going to talk about my gear, and I'm trying to not over-explain everything, because I've done this video twice now, and they've both been 50 minutes long, which is just too long. No one's going to watch a 50-minute video. So I'm going to try and get this down to like 20, 30 minutes. So if I talk a bit too fast and maybe skip over something, I'm sorry. But if people want like the 50-minute videos back, I will do them. But at the moment, this is just more to just explain the build, what I've got, what I'm doing, how I plan on taking it further, how you can maybe do something different if you want to, or potential. For example, I'm going to straight up tell you, Eternity Shroud with all shape of gear will probably do the most damage output on this build. There you go, look straight up. So let's just fucking get into it. So, Penance Brand. So brands, if you don't know, brands are basically like these little balls you put out, and they're almost kind of like a totem. Once an enemy comes in its range, it will attach them. It will attach itself to the mob, and then it will start dealing damage. In this case, though, our brands don't deal damage until they either expire, get moved, the enemy dies, or it's fully charged. So it doesn't do instant damage, but you can fix that with a cluster that makes it bounce around. You essentially need this node to run maps. So I'll get onto the tree though and the clusters in a minute. But yeah, brand. So brands, you can have brand duration, brand like reach, brand range or whatever. You can have activation speed or activation time. I don't know what it's called. In our case, we can scale cast speed because it links with that because it's something special to do with the gem. And I think that's it. So essentially a brand has the duration of it has a duration for when it's on the ground and when it's looking for an enemy. That's way longer than when it's attached. It has two different timers for that. It has an attachment time and a detachment time, which is if we look at Penance Brand here. Can be attached for a total of 2.5 seconds and can be detached for 6 seconds. So if you get increased brand duration, it's just going to increase those numbers. In our case, we obviously want it to be attached longer because that means we can reach the 20 stacks because Penance Brand builds up like that. In terms of brand, you also get brand recall. When you recall, it costs a bit of mana nowadays because that's a change they did. And it also cools them around you. It looks kind of cool as well when you cool them because it goes in like a nice formation. And it also gives them a lot of range once you pull them onto you, so then they go seeking mobs again. And that's how you can get the really mad clear. If you get the big range, they'll just go off screen and just start killing stuff for you, which is really nice. So that's kind of a real quick brand explanation. And then Penance Brand itself is essentially a brand that just pulses around, and once it reaches a certain threshold or you expire it by the duration running out, by default that'll be 2.5 seconds, it'll explode, dealing damage. Based on how much charge it has, it will do more and more area. So in single target, basically you want to reach that 20 stacks, but by default, Penance Brand will not reach 20 stacks because it has an activation timer and a duration, and you have to balance the two. So currently, on mine, I have an activation, it's right at the bottom line there, 0.27 seconds while attached. But my duration, which is kind of near the top after the area of effect part, it only lasts 3.63 seconds. So in a quick math shell, whatever I just said, I can only get to about 14 stacks before this blows up, which is missing a lot of single target potential because it gets to 20. And I think every stack is either 50% or like 150% more damage, which is insane. I do believe there is a mechanic where there are mobs around and it keeps bouncing around. It charges up quicker because I swear down, I've seen it do insane damage, especially when there's like mobs around a big mob, so around a unique or a boss. It seems to shine there the most. And then obviously if you just let it charge up and it's a pure single target situation, if you crit, you'll know when you crit, you'll just do so much insane damage. It's crazy. So another thing to note about this as well is that cast speed increases the activation frequency. Normally that's like a special modifier you have to do with like gems or items. In our case, increased speed will increase this. So as you can see, it's 0.27 seconds. If I flame dash and proc my Arcane Surge, which is 10% more cast speed, it goes down to 2.5. So you can see how scaling cast speed is going to give you more damage essentially. So cast speed is a very valuable stat for us. You just need to make sure that your duration and your activation frequency kind of line up, and you don't like get more or less of one or the other because you can waste a lot of stats. Obviously, if you've got your duration up to say 10 seconds, 0.27 seconds activation would be more than enough to get to 20 stacks, and it would blow up before the duration even ended anyway, because when it reaches max stacks, it blows up. So you're actually wasting all that extra duration. So it's kind of a balancing act to get that to be balanced as possible. But for me, I haven't really focused too hard on that. I've just taken most of the brand stuff on the tree and it's working wonders. Obviously still can be min-maxed, which is lovely, so there is that higher ceiling you can get to, and it really will reward you for that as well. You'll probably be able to one-shot like Guardians and stuff, like Shaper and Elder Guardians, and insta-phase stuff. So yeah, that's Brands. If I've missed anything, or I'm obviously trying to talk quite quick, obviously it's a fizz-based spell that's 50% converted to lightning, so we're obviously converting the rest of that, and then we're scaling the lightning damage into cold. But I'm going to go through the gear right now. So if I've missed anything, like I said, I'm trying to make this video as short as possible. So our gear, let's just start off with the mandatory parts, at least in my setup, are the rings, because we are converting all our brand damage with our gloves and a node on the tree. 25% there, 25 on the glove, 50 by default. That means we've got 100% conversion into lightning. And then we're converting 96% of our lightning to cold. And we also get 100% chance to shock against frozen enemies, which is, as long as you're not using Ellie Focus, don't be an idiot like I did and use Ellie Focus in the setup. You're gonna, if you're using Call of the Brotherhoods, you're gonna completely cuck all the ailment stuff, which is actually really valuable. Freezing and chilling enemies is a huge part of the defense, and obviously shocking stuff. When we do big damage, but we don't one-shot something, we put a huge shock multiplier on something, so then our next one will do even more damage. So it's a win-win here, so definitely make sure not to use Ellie Focus, even though it is the biggest single gem damage increase on PoB. Don't let it fool you, even if you've got the boxes ticked, like, are they chilled and stuff, it still thinks Ellie Focus is the most. Don't fall into that trap, you know? Like, it was saying it was better than Hypothermia even when they were chilled, but you can't chill something if you don't inflict ailments. So you could always like inflict ailments with your Orber Storms, but it just ain't the same. So obviously I'll talk about the links in a minute, but that's why I've not done that. Then I would say Replica Soul Tether for any Inquisitor that's running Pyre's Path or whatever it's called is a must. As soon as I put this thing on, I was so much tankier. It was so much easier. I've died once since I put this on, like while mapping, and that was because it was Ellie Reflect. The only other times I've died with this on is in the Katarina fight. I just misplayed. It was totally up to me, totally down to me. Misplayed, didn't know the fight too well, and I died to an Elder Guardian. He kind of did some attack. He like threw an axe, and it does AoE, and it had like 100% increased AoE on the map mod. I'm pretty sure I dashed out of it, but it like auto targeted me and it hit me and one shot me. Only just because I got hit by it again when I went in for the second part of the fight. And it didn't one-shot me the second time. So maybe it just crit and I got unlucky. Who knows? You definitely, with 3.5k life and 2.9k energy shield, is more than enough to clear all the endgame. I've actually had no problems clearing any of the endgame. Normally I'd have big problems like Katarina and Awakener. I've done Awakener 5. I don't know if I mentioned that one. But I haven't. And I did Awakener 5 before I even had this. And I only died like twice. So it is an insane build. So those are mandatory, at least in my setup. You can obviously go maybe like a Mark of the Shaper with a Shaper ring and get Assassin's Mark on hit rather than having to proc it yourself. Assassin's Mark is the biggest damage curse we can get. I'll talk about that in a sec when I talk about my gems. So yeah, you can definitely do that. Or you can go like Circle of Anguish maybe, because Herald of Ash gives Fizz's Extra. Fizz's Extra is a huge damage increase in this build. So you can use something like this with buff effect. That means that Fizz's Extra is even higher. But since we're not scaling our fire damage and stuff, I don't know if it'll be that good. You could even potentially go Circle of Anguish with the Herald of Ice one and get the increased cold damage, because we are using Herald of Ice in our main setup. But you could, there's a lot of things you can do. You can use any Herald really, because you could use Herald of Thunder to apply curses as well, which is quite nice because it doesn't take up any extra mana. You can use Herald of Ice for some extra cold damage and just some nice MTX explosions basically, and you can use Herald of Ash. Sorry, I always say Herald of Ash. I'm an idiot. You can use that for the, I would say, more damage because it's going to give you the Fizz's Extra. But obviously we're not scaling the fire, so but it will still be probably the bigger damage increase. I don't know if it's better than Call of the Brotherhoods in my current setup, but that's what I'm running. I'm then using the Explodey chest. You just need to make sure you have a prefix spare to get the 10% life as extra ES, because that is massive. That plus the Soul Tether, as you can see, I've got 3k, barely even spec'd into ES. I've just got a couple of ES based gears, but they're not even scaling really ES other than my helmet. Explodey's not really necessary. We're not really scaling the Explodey too well since we only have 25% of that being converted because the other ones specify spells. So I did have a hatred, not a hatred, I had a Watcher's Eye in with Wrath at one point that converted 40% plus gloves, and the Exploding Chest felt a lot better, because obviously then a lot more of its damage. If you don't know, you can convert this Fizz into an element. It works basically like a spell, and it can also crit, it also benefits from Fizz as extra. So if you get a lot more Fizz as extra, see, maybe if you get the Herald of Ass rings, you know, your Exploding Chest might carry then, but yeah, it's just there for corpse removal and some extra cleave in this build. You can, if you want, you can use the gem to convert all your Fizz, or find another way, and go Impulsa's Storm's Gift, so you get the same, you have to take up 2 slots, but you get like a much more consistent explode of screens, so that is a play, but obviously it takes up 2 slots, and Storm's Gifts are crap. They don't really have anything else on them. I'll show you them here if you don't know what they look like. Clearly I don't know what they look like here. So they're the only thing they have a bit of resist on them, and then it's just enemies you kill are shocked. The reason that works with Impulsors is because the explosions can't shock by default, but they can with that on, so that means they can chain react. That's essentially all it does. But it's really strong for this build because we're converting all that damage into cold, so they're basically doing big cold damage, and we're scaling all the Ellie, so it all just comes together, whereas the Exploded Chest kind of gets half left behind, unfortunately. But yeah, any chest, I would say, make sure it's a Vara Gallia, make sure you got that open prefix, and then in terms of other mods you can get that I probably want Frenzy on here, because Frenzy is more damage and attack speed, and you get 10% roll on the chest. That's really good. Other than that, you know, maybe scaling my int and strength to make more use of this node here, because it gives us 1% crit for whatever the lowest. At the moment my strength's the lowest, so if I was to get 50 strength on my chest, that's basically 50 crit. So that's also something to note, but I'll talk about that when I get to the tree. Then we got some spike gloves. Don't worry, they're just spike gloves because these were the only ones with the stats I needed on at the time. I needed some dex, and I wanted the full conversion, and I wanted a spare suffix, and I wanted life. And then the extra benefit was I got one with huge strength roll on it, so that's basically acting as like 50 crit plus a little bit of life because it's strength, so it's a double benefit there. Maybe like a unnerve on hit gloves might be better, and some fingerless spike gloves will always be best in the slot here. I can't think of any other uniques that you might use, but unnerve would be 10% more damage taken, so pretty OP there. Boots are just some generic move speed strength boots that I had lying around with a decent enchant on them. The enchant kind of scales with our defense because we are regen based, but I do have a pair of Corker boots. By Corker I mean nice pair of boots here that I'm probably going to throw on at some point, which have life, double resist with a chaos resist, which is something to know about the replica soul tether, which I'll talk about in a second actually, but you probably want some chaos res, since it bypasses ES and we don't have much life at the moment. 10% elusive on crit, we are critting all the time, got move speed on them, these are pretty good. The enchant, I'd say this one's not that bad honestly for bossing. I guess the increased attack and cast speed if you've killed recently will probably be best in slot, but then a close second would be like the regen one that I've got here, obviously the higher version of it, and then maybe like the cold and all the fire added damage ones that you get, really nice as well. And then obviously move speed is always nice if you want to go fast. But yeah, I'll come back to the belt now because it's a good thing to mention about the chaos res. This belt gives you corrupted soul, right? And this is what makes it so OP, right? It gives you 20% of your life as ES, so you get a shit ton of ES for stacking life, and obviously then it like splits the damage, right? And you'd think this was a downside, but the 50% of non-chaos damage taken bypasses energy shield. So what that means is normally, say you have your ES, you have your life, you take damage, your ES goes down, and then it goes into your life, and then your life goes down. Now, when you take damage, you lose a little bit of ES because you take 50% of it, but then you take the rest of it to your life. So you can actually die with ES still up, essentially, is what that's saying. But chaos damage also bypasses energy shield. So the problem is, if you don't have much life, like I don't, most decent chaos things in the game are going to one-shot me. So the way to get around that is obviously scale some chaos resistance. Obviously I'm using this is best in stock flask for us anyway, so we get a massive chunk of chaos res from that. When I put these on, I'll get another 24, and I'm already at minus 40. So with this up, and with the boots on, I'll be about like 15% plus. which is the highest I've ever been. So that might help me from getting one shot from chaos damage, hopefully, and then the regen can carry us from there. But the Soul Tether is just so good. It feels you wouldn't think it'd be so good, but when you put it on, it's just a game changer. It also acts like a buffer because of our regen. Like our ES is basically just like it's almost like mind over matter, but like slightly different, but on your health and ES rather than using mana. Is the best way to describe it. But once you have a decent amount of regen, it's really strong, and it's probably best in slot for defense. Otherwise, you're not going to have any. In terms of our helmet, just straight up life resists. Big ES roll just to help our ES pool to be bigger, since we got nothing else to put on the helmet. You can obviously get like a wall of one, maybe get some multi, maybe get like a multi-link one for your Orb of Storm setup. So get like Area of Effect or Hypothermia on there just for it does more damage. I don't know, there's probably some nice helmet setups you can get with influencers these days, but I'm just rolling with this. +1 amulet with multi and life is probably the 3 main stats you want to look for. You can also swap out the +1 for Fizz's Extra. If you get a double Fizz's Extra, I think it outscales the +1, but they're more expensive. I just took this one. It was like 1x, I think, or 100C or something. Pretty good. +1. You can't go wrong with +1 with spells. As you can see, we got a 25 Penance Brand. My wand was self-found, but it is insane. You probably don't need anything this insane. It was found instead. We didn't have the T1 cold spells on it. It was a mana roll, and I managed to harvest non-cold, add cold, I think it was. It took off the mana and slammed on the T1 cold, which is just fucking nutty. And it had a spare prefix as well. It literally has everything you need on it. So that is a baseline to go by, but the main things you want are some spell damage, +1. I'd probably say then cast speed, then probably multi, and then crit, and then some flat damage. That'll be your best in slot there. In that order. And the craft spell damage with the non-chaos as extra chaos will be stronger because it will work on each step of our conversion as well, which is also why Eternity Shroud will actually be best in slot for pure damage endgame, because you get the Elia's extra and the non-chaos extra at every step of conversion. That's why it's so busted. And then our shield, +1 again, life, crit, because you get big crit roll. You can also get big spell damage roll on your shield, maybe better than the crit. And then just anything else, maybe some resists, and I got a bit of ES, which is quite nice. This was like 100C, so not too mad. You can obviously craft something in. I've almost crafted something better in a Harvest, just slamming a shield with the caster modifiers. You can pretty much almost guarantee a juicy roll with that. So definitely recommend buying a nice like Shaper base, because you can also then get the recovery on block like this shield has. You can get the recovery on life or the recovery on ES. Either or would be quite nice. Just a bit of extra regen. I wouldn't prioritise that over anything because we're not glancing blows, so it's not that consistent, but better than nothing. And I think that's the gear. I have spoke a bit fast, I'm sorry, but we got a lot to go through still. So our main link is Penance Brand, linked with added lightning damage. I swapped this out instead of Ellie Focus because, like I said, Ellie Focus might give you the most damage on POB, but completely cucks all our ailments, and we actually scale quite hard off ailments, and it's also defense, so don't do what I did. And then level 5 to get the +1. That's why our thing's 25. It was only like 2x for this, so probably worth it, to be honest. Conquest is our biggest single damage gem. I think it's better than Ellie Focus as well, just for pure numbers. But it gives less area. But I'm pretty sure you don't need to scale area on Penance Brand for the way it works. It like kind of tags mobs that when it blows up, those mobs that are tagged blow up. So you don't really need like massive area, even though it does scale off area. I've dropped all my air off the tree, and there's another reason why my Explodey's not that good. I've dropped all my air of effect, and it seems to do the same thing, really. The only thing I noticed was the Explodey chest was a little less effective, so if you want to scale your Explodey chest, you can maybe take some more area. Controlled Destruction, obviously a given here. It's more damage. It does give you reduced crit, which is kind of annoying, but we can outscale that anyway, so that's fine. Inspiration Support, more crit, more multiplier. Could say that, more Ellie multiplier. And it reduces our mana cost. Brands cost a lot of mana. Mine's already at 65 here with this on. So, and we only have 180 mana, and we're even using a mana flash. So, you know, definitely worth it. Hypothermia, got 21 one. First fucking 21 gem the other day. So 40% more multiplier when they're chilled, which is pretty much instantly. You tag them with Orb of Storms, they're chilled. so we can proc this very easily, and any source of damage we do will chill, I'm pretty sure. And obviously we've mega freeze stuff as well, so that's also very nice. But yeah, so that's my damage setup there. Then in the wand we got Righteous Fire. We use this just for the Vial, gives us 28% more damage for the burst. I'm pretty sure everything in this game is dynamic, so you press this just as your orbs are about to blow up. Don't press it and then put the brands out, because then you'll have to wait and it might run out by the time the things blow up. I'm pretty sure you can't snapshot much in this game, so I'm pretty sure this will just, as soon as you press it, you'll get the 28% more on the explosion. Assassin's Mark, our best damage curse, because Ellie weakness and stuff doesn't work with this, at least to my understanding, because when we crit we just straight up ignore enemy resistances, so that means they're 0. It doesn't matter what they've got on them, we crit, we ignore the Ellie resistances, so having like -30 on an Ellie weakness doesn't do anything for us unless we don't crit, right, and then we penetrate 10 and the Ellie weakness would work then. But we're a crit build, we're scaling crit, that's what we're here for. So yeah, that's the leveling Herald of Ice. But we do have a Herald of Ice here with a Vitality and a Zealotry, with an Enlightened support, so we bring that mana cost down, so we actually have more mana to play with. We're using Zealotry over all the other auras because it makes Consecrated Ground under stuff, rares particularly, and uniques, and we get 50% more damage if we have Consecrated Ground under them. So when they're under Consecrated Ground, this is more damage than Wrath, this is more damage than Hatred. Hatred will be your next best bet because it gives more damage and it gives Fizzes extra. Like I said, Fizzes extra is huge. But just for the consistency of getting Consecrated Ground under enemies, is huge, because they take more damage from that point. They also take increased crit, and it also just creates Consecrated Ground for us to run on and get mad regen, even though we have a lingering buff. But you never know when that might just randomly turn off if you're not paying attention. So very, very good there. I would recommend that setup. Obviously Vitality just to boost. We're getting that to our ES as well. So, and this is like mana cost per level, so you can just level this as much as you feel comfortable. Herald of Ice, like I said, can be swapped out for any of the heralds depending on which way you play it. Herald of Thunder would be more like utility, and then this would be just for some extra damage that actually scales with our main damage source. And then Herald of Ash I'd only use if you're using the rings, or just swap out for this. I mean, the Fizzes extra is probably way better than this, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah. Then we're using Second Wind, Arcane Surge, Brand Recall, Flame Dash. The Second Wind will not give Brand Recall 2 uses, but it will benefit from the cooldown recovery, so definitely worth there. It's also, they're both linked to a lower level Arcane Surge, so they proc off one cast. So when I recall, I get Arcane Surge. When I dash, I get Arcane Surge, so it's permanently up. We're constantly dashing and recalling, so very worth. Casting damage taken, Immortal Cool. I need to get rid of this now that I know the exposure doesn't work, at least from what I understand, so this will probably be an increased duration just to make the Immortal Cool last longer. We take less damage and then we start getting our mad regen. Very, very nice. You can maybe use Steel Skin, but obviously, I mean, we are scaling a lot of strength, so we can use either or, to be honest, so it would be quite nice, but maybe we'll see. Orb of Storms, Ice Bite, Power Charge on crit, increased area. We're using Orb of Storms to basically generate frenzies and powers. We won't get frenzies on bosses because this is an on-kill effect, which is why I say get on the chest, because it's on hit and you'll have that for bosses. But you will get the power because this is just, you get a chance to have a power and it crits. We're scaling crits, so Orb of Storms critting all the time when it's down. And in bosses, you will, I mean, in maps, you will call trash to get the frenzy proc. So sometimes you do have them rolling as you run into a boss, which is quite nice. And then Flask, Bleeding Flask, pretty standard. Diamond because we're crit, but we got Curse Removal. We don't have to worry about ailments because we are ailment immune. Move Speed Flask, gotta go fast. We're using a Mana Flask at the moment, but you could probably top this up for a Cinder Swallow. Maybe even go Taste of Hate, or you can go Cinder Swallow, Taste of Hate. Once you don't need this, and you can, you know, not be corrupted blooded with a jewel or something. And then our single biggest damage increase flask is obviously this. It benefits from the Fizz, it benefits from the Ellie, on all the conversion steps, and it gives us some chaos res. Like I said, the flask is just a win everywhere. So definitely recommend that one. Now our tree, obviously our ascendancy is Inquisitor because we're going down for this big boy node. We ignore resistances when we crit, which is huge damage, especially against like big bosses, like your end of act, not your end of act bosses, like your big T16 maps, your big Cyruses, your Mavens, all of that. It does mean we can't go into the minuses, so in some builds you can actually get enough penetration to actually would be better than this. But since we don't have to scale any penetration as well, it saves a lot of points, it saves a lot of mods on our gear to do other things with and scale. Just make sure you're scaling this as well. This node's actually kind of OP now. It gives crit for the lowest point in your strength or in at the moment. Oh shit. At the moment we're getting 265 crit from our strength. Global increase. So in town right now, I have 47 crit on an Inquisitor. That's nuts. That's without power charges up and stuff like that. So that's nutty. And Diamond Flask. I mean, with a Diamond Flask, we're at like 78% effective crit. But then, yeah, I did take this for the memes at one point because I was planning on playing a different build until I got this wand. And I was like, fuck it, we're going Penance. I don't think the more cast speed affects the Penance Brand charge up, so I don't think this is worth it. Otherwise, this could maybe be abused to make your Penance Brands like insta blow up and do big damn. But even if you went these with this node, you have no points for defense and you will just fall over when you look at a mob. Once I took these and got a replica Soul Tailor, that's when I felt safe on this build. So, and essentially Sanctuary will give you 50% more damage, and you have Consecrated Ground when you're stood still, so that just means you get the mad regen when you're stood still. But enemies in Consecrated Ground take increased damage, and they also take they have an increased crit strike chance. So this just is double benefit. Once again, that's why we're using Zealotry, so we get that under the mobs that we're trying to kill, the main boys. You'll notice in a ritual that Zealotry will just crap out fucking ground everywhere by the time you've ended the event. It's kind of funny, which is really nice. It means everything's taking more damage. And then Pious Path is the one that gives us the mad regen to our ES. So basically, we get Consecrated Ground you create, causes life regeneration to also recover energy shield for you and your allies. We also get Ailment Immunity, and the effects linger for 4 seconds. And by linger, they mean they're permanently up. Because, yeah, you could walk around for ages, but literally when I cast a brand, that is enough to stop and refresh it. So in normal situations, you are never not affected by that. So insane. The tree, pretty basic. You want to make sure you go over and grab these 2 or these 3 because their fizz is extra. They scale both the Ellie and the fizz. This is just a massive increase. You get a Thread of Hope here. You can clip all 3 here with a large ring and save some points, which is the plan for me. With brands, you want to make sure you're taking Rune Binder because this is an additional brand attached to an enemy. It's basically double damage on a boss. And then you just want to take all the brand nodes. This one here is for crit multi. This one here is for an additional brand and damage and range. The more range you get, the more your clear will probably improve. And then there's another one here. And then there's also an OP one up here that has a lot of duration. So this will probably help get to that 20 stacks. So I'm probably going to have to respec a little bit to grab these. The tree's quite thin because we have to pick up a lot of crit and as much life as possible. The only area I've got is here now, which I'll probably end up dropping soon. And we're just taking life where we can. This is just purely for the dex, but it gives us a bit of cast, so it's not completely pointless. Obviously, you can see I've got dex there. That's the only problem with using Hypothermia. You have to make sure you've got like at least around 110 dex. So you might need a good roll on at least 1 piece of gear. And then the most OP thing about brands, I would say, is the clusters. Now, the one cluster jewel you're going to need for mapping is Holy Conquest. This essentially means that the brand will bounce around every 0.3 seconds, and when this brand bounces around, it deals damage. So that's how you do instant damage. Otherwise, you'd have to sit there and wait, and it's not really the PoE way. You just want to go bang and just blow shit up. So, and then your next best bet on the medium clusters is just OP. So you probably just stack medium clusters. You want grand design. You may as well stack as many of these. They give you everything you need in one node. But another good one is Remarkable, because this will make it so you can create additional brands. Like when I place a brand, I placed one, I placed one, I placed one, I placed one. That's unfortunate. I got very unlucky. There's 35% chance to basically create 2. So I'm just looking up here. Create 1, create 1, create 2. Hey, we did it. So you can stack a couple of those so you get that to like 70 or 100% if you have 3 of them. And then I've also got Seeker's Runes, which I wouldn't recommend. It basically just gives attachment range per second up to 100, so you get like big attachment range. But I mean, it was funny when it was bugged, but it's not very good anymore, I don't think. you'd be better off with a Grand Design and a couple of Remarkables. You only need one Holy Conquest. I'm just using the LE Damage Large Cluster, just because there's some nice ones on there, especially this one. The 10% chance to blind is a nice defense layer. The LE damage is not... I mean, the LE damage is nice, but it's not massive, right? You can go like the cold or the lightning ones here, and there's probably some nice notables there you can get. I think the one that's like an enemy's chilled, you get like 10% of your lightning as cold or something. It reads along those lines. That one would be really strong because we're scaling both of those. And then we got a small cluster just for some cold. What did I just say? We got a small cluster here for some life. We basically want Fettle. I just took this one for now. Couldn't be asked to keep rolling it at the time, but you basically just want increased life as much as possible because we get ES from life, so we don't really need to scale ES. We get enough of it as well. It's insane. But yeah, there's a few things on this tree I definitely want to fix. It's by no means the best tree. It's a bit scuffed, honestly. Like these are probably questionable here. Maybe this bit as well. And maybe trying to get another cluster setup going might be the play. Or the only other play I can think of at the moment is going full power charge. So grabbing all the powers, plus this and this node here, because it gives crit and multi and damage. And then you'd have to come all the way over here, or at least link that one. And then getting power charge on your helmet as an influence mod. And then putting power charge on crit in your setup instead of, say, like Hypothermia or Inspiration, or maybe even added lightning. And then just go full power. And then with all those power charges, you'd have a lot more like global crit, and you'd probably reach the cap, like 100%, maybe even without Diamond Flask. But like, how much would you have to invest? You know, how much life would I lose for doing that? How many brand nodes can I still take doing that? I haven't really done the math on that one, so I can't really recommend it, but I can at least tell you the idea, and maybe you can figure out a tree that can do that. A Leap of Faith up here as well apparently is very strong, because you can grab this node, this node, this node, maybe a power charge if you want it, maybe even this one I think might be in range. It's an extremely strong Leap of Faith node here. And if you don't want to use a soul tether, you can use the I don't remember which timeless jewel it is. It's one of the corrupted ones, but if you put it in a socket where it reaches a keystone, I don't remember which one of the three, it will turn the keystone into this keystone. So this is a keystone essentially from a tree. So you can maybe put it over here and just grab this instead, and then maybe use a different belt, which will probably be the play, to be honest, because a nice Stygian Vise would probably cream that belt if you can get the keystone elsewhere. And that is it. I took a Lyra for my ting, because we're crit. And I'll give you a quick look at the tree. As you can see here, we've got an average hit of almost 4 million at 20 stages. I don't even reach 20 stages yet, and that's with Assassin's Mark on them. That's not even with Val, right? Just fire up. That's not even with a flask up. That's just with power. I mean, that's with frenzies, if you can carry frenzies in. But our full burst looks like this. So we have frenzies. Our crit is lucky. We've got our Zuris up. We got our, again, righteous fire up. Is there anything else? I think that's it, right? And that's everything up. 7.3 million. That's an average hit. Average hit. So if you crit, it's going to be doing insane damage. We've got 480 multi with 95% effective crit as long as our diamond flask is up. And this is, I would consider this still a scuffed build. So you can imagine the damage you can pull out of this thing. And if you went Eternity Shroud, I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know. just blow the game. Just delete the just Alt F4 the game if you crit with Eternity Shroud and just went full fucking memes with that. But that's something I might try endgame once I have a lot of currency, because you need like Shaper Call of the Brotherhoods, and they're like fucking 6x a pop, and you know you need all that kind of stuff. And I need a Shaper weapon. Obviously my weapon's pretty GG. So that's self out. So I'll put this POB in the link below. If you want to come watch me live, I'll be streaming this on Twitch. I'll probably be playing this build a lot. This is kind of like my guy now. Whenever I need to do big juicy stuff, I'll play this guy. My next build's probably going to be an Elementalist cast on Crit Ice Nova. Maybe. I've seen a video of a guy playing it. I think it's the what's his name, Fast AF or whatever he's called, and it looks fun as fuck. And I love cast on crit, so playing it as a different ascendancy as well would be fun rather than a bloody assassin. I'm going to try not to roll one assassin this league, okay? I promise. And And then the only other build that I might do soon is Ellie Hit. I have a Fire Ellie Hit build on the go with the Raider. I'm in the middle of crafting a bow for that, which is here. I need to save it with a Harvest Craft. I got +2 and a +1 Frenzy and Damage Pen. But then I bricked it. But we can still save it. The +2 and the 1 Frenzy is really rare together, so I kind of want to keep those on there. But yeah, links below. Like the video if you like the video. Come follow me on Twitch. Have a good time. And I will see you in the next one. There's 40 minutes. That's not bad. That's 10 minutes less than you could have watched the other one. Anyways, if I missed anything or I said anything that was dumb and is completely wrong, you can correct me down below. And if you have any other cool suggestions, I suppose, for this build that could potentially be game-changing, leave them down below if you want, and I might try them out. And yeah, just a feels good, you know? So stay wide, boys. Stay wide. Peace out, everyone. Bye!